come back to you. You just go out of the Zoom session and then try to join in the Zoom session. It will be helpful for you. So it will be helpful for you. So just try to be in a single place. Those who are in mobile, so try to be in single place so that it will be helpful for you. Just settle down for 1 hour to 1.5 hours. It's going to be the session. So thank you so much. I hope the logistics instructions will be helpful for you. And once again, signing off, I'm Dinesh Gajendran. So I request Dr. Auxilia Antony, the assistant professor from Department of Commerce, to kickstart the session. And if you have any doubts over any logistics thing, and we have the faculties from Department of Commerce who's been in the WhatsApp groups which we have created, and also the numbers of Dr. Auxilia Antony and Ms. Satya, assistant professor, and also Sister Sahaya Mary, assistant professor of Department of Commerce, who has been a coordinator of this program. So they'll be helpful for you throughout the sessions, and also our technical team and moderating team also will be helpful for you. It will be helpful for you throughout the end of the session. So we look forward to have a fruitful journey with you. So I'm handing over the session to Dr. Auxilia Antony, assistant professor, Department of Commerce. Okay, Dr. Auxilia.
Shall I?
Yes, ma'am, please. Yeah.
Let us enter this program in the loving hands of God. Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you for adding another day in our life. Lord, of all creation, we ask your blessings upon each one of us gathered here. As the scripture says, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Bless all the activities of the day. Let us all glory and honor be due to God. Let us listen to the prayer song.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. And I request Dr. I request Sister Sahaya Mary to introduce the guest of honor for today.
Good morning. This is Sarai Mary from Auxilium College. I would like to speak few lines about the college. Auxilium College was founded in 1954, the first women's college in the Vellore district, and is affiliated to the Tiruvallur University. Auxilium College by the UGC and the Tiruvallur University from the academic year 2007-2008. The college has been accredited by National Assessment and Accreditation Council with A+ grade in 2003, re-accredited with A grade with 3.41 out of 4 in 2010, and with A+ grade with a CGPA of 3.55 out of 4 in the third cycle in 2016. It is a minority institution established and administered by the Salesian Sisters of Don Bosco. The goal of our educative endeavor is to produce intellectually enlightened, spiritually inspired, emotionally balanced, morally upright, socially committed, accomplished, in a word, integrally formed young women who will be agents of social transformation. True to the vision of its founders, the college commits itself to serve the economically weak, socially backward, and needy students. Besides increasing, diffusing, and disseminating knowledge, higher education has also the function of serving the community. Every student is expected to fulfill this duty either by enrolling herself in the National Service Scheme or in any other voluntary group in the college committed to community service. The Department of Commerce, one of the oldest in the college, ever since its inception, the department has maintained an exalted academic profile, which is clearly reflected in the outstanding academic performance of the students. The department came into existence with the launching of BCom degree course general, and of late, the department has also launched BCom banking and insurance. In recognition of its remarkable achievements, it had been elevated to a postgraduate and MPhil department. If God willing, we are glad that we would be commencing the PhD program this year. On behalf of the Secretary, the Principal, and the members of the faculty of this esteemed institution, I welcome all the resource persons and the faculty members from various institutions. May this one-week program help us expand, enrich, and enhance the horizons of our knowledge so that we can be effective and efficient educators among the students aiming at the transformation of the society where justice, peace, and unity prevail. Let me introduce the day's resource person. I am happy and glad to introduce and welcome Dr. Lata Parameshwaran from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the Coimbatore campus of Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. She is currently the professor and chairperson of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. She was in the software industry for 10 years prior to joining Amrita. She completed her master's degree from PSD College of Technology and her PhD from Bharatiyar University. Her PhD thesis title, Digital Watermarking for Image Security, was highly commended by the experts. Her areas of research include image processing, information retrieval, image mining, information security, and theoretical computer science. She has published papers in international journals and at conferences where she has won several Best Paper awards. She has authored a chapter in a book published by the Idea Group. In addition to teaching and serving as chair of the CSE department, she is currently guiding PhD research scholars in Amrita, Bharatiyar, and Anna University. She is also a member in the board of studies at various premier academic institutions in India. She also holds position in academic council in premier institutions. She is in the faculty recruitment board, faculty appraisal committee, recommendations for infrastructure setting up committee at various institutions. She also works on projects funded by DST. Her special interests include encouraging more and more women into the work in engineering, technology, and computing. Also, she conducts workshops for school children in the classes from 8 to 12 to encourage them to pursue computer science as their field of study. In connection with this, she has conducted two conferences on women in computing at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham in 2010 and 2013. Such an eminent person is here with us to enlighten us on technology enhanced learning and innovation education. Hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sister Sahaya Mary, for the great introduction regarding the high-profile speaker, Dr. Lata Parmeshwaran. So it's over to Dr. Lata Parmeshwaran for the first day inaugural, the powerful packed address it's going to be. So I request all the participants to mute yourself and also mute your audio and video, so it will be helpful for throughout the session. So the session is over to Dr. Lata Parmeshwaran.
Thank you so much, Dinesh. I think I'm audible. Okay,
Yeah,
I think I'm audible. Can you just confirm, Dinesh, am I audible?
yes, you're audible.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
But your virtual image is a bit distracting. Are you going to do a continuous virtual image?
No. It will be once I start the PowerPoint, this page
Okay.
goes.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to show my campus to everybody.
Okay,
That's why
great.
the virtual image.
Great.
So, good morning, everybody. So, I was so overwhelmed with the prayer. Okay, we started in our traditional way, and I'm able to see the participants right from Meghalaya, Sikkim, up to say down south, Kanyakumari, and south. So, we are all in a single room now, so which we never assumed. So, COVID-19, though, has taught us many things. One thing that it has taught us is technology can connect all of us, and I appreciate Satya and her team because with the short duration they could bring nearly say 200 plus participants on this. Okay, it's a wonderful opportunity that I have got, and I'm so happy that I'm able to share my experience on teaching with technology to everyone. So I just want to have a disclaimer. Whatever I'm going to share in the screen could be is based on my experience and the experience from my colleagues. So I can also add your experiences at the end of the session and make it much more powerful for my further presentations and for all of us, because there is nothing different between you and me. The only thing is that maybe I'll be much faster to use the gadgets and so on. Not all gadgets, with maybe the technology. That's because of my experience. Nothing else differs you and me from this. So I invite all of you for this first session. And once again, thanks Satya and her team for all the efforts that are there. So as Mr. Dinesh was mentioning, I can defer all the questions to the end of the session. So I want the questions not as a question because I may not have an answer. Let us have some positive discussions, because after all of us have only one single goal, that is mm, that is to connect to the best possible way to our student. So our student is our primary. So even my family members will say, if I get a call from any student at any time, I'll just switch off everything and then start work. I mean, talking to the student or helping them out and so on. So that's in our blood. That's why we are in the teaching profession. So we are teachers ever, whether we retire or whether we quit or move from one to another, we are teachers forever. So that's the biggest thing that connects all of us to the society. So teachers are always well respected. Okay, so there could be here and there now one or two, that's different, but by and large they at least have the highest respect for teachers that is there. So that's so I sincerely bow my actually pranams, namaskarams to all my gurus who have made me say recognize myself as an speaker at one of the FDP hosted by an institution and well-known, renowned institution. So that's thank you for that. So Dinesh, can I start the presentation? Can I start sharing the screen?
You can share the screen.
Yeah, fine. So just, I think it's loading. Yeah. Are you able to see the screen now?
Yes, 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 ma'am.
Yeah, fine. Thank you so much. So I'm Lata Parmeshwaran, professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the Amrita University, Coimbatore campus. So, and I thank the institution, the Department of Commerce, Auxilium College, Vellore, for having given me this opportunity to share certain insights into technology enhanced education and innovative education. So I will just move around. So welcome to all. Okay, I think the program, just to recap, as Mrs. Satya was telling, it's a 1 week international faculty development program on challenges in restructuring the innovative teaching learning techniques. So, and organized by the department. Special thanks to Professor, Assistant Professor Satya, HOD in charge. And of course, today we are in the first session, technology enhanced learning and innovative education. So first of all, I welcome all the professors. I think large number of people have gathered here. So you can also add value to this. So more than an FDP, it is just sharing of our experiences in this teaching learning. So I'm just splitting this topic in the journey will be like this. We'll start with education, learning, innovation, technology, and what is enhanced technology. So this will be the journey of the topic for the next 1 hour that I'm going to share with you. So what is this all about? So many terminologies. So education, all of us know, it is simply the process of imparting or acquiring, say, particular knowledge or skills for a profession. So for my profession, I need a good computer science and skill knowledge. So I see professors from commerce, so they need a good knowledge of commerce and economics. So I see professors from English, so where we value them with a lot of literature knowledge, and the other say English is the one that connects all of us. So we always have high regard to the English professors. So I see some mathematics professors here. So without mathematics, of course, it's the twin sister of computer science, and of course for everybody that is there. And then I see some people from visual arts. So thank you, visual arts. Whatever I'm using is all visual arts, so that I will be able to communicate to you in a better, simpler manner. So so I acquired some knowledge during these years, and so I call myself as an educationist or an educator. So an education is the process of actually learning as well as imparting the knowledge. Both together forms the education. Education doesn't mean always learning. It also means how do we impart. So for imparting education, I think we need not be a teacher or a professor, whatever we did. So I think right from childhood, we do peer learning, peer teaching. Say some of our friends, the class will say, see, this problem I never understood, or this concept I never understood. So we used to help them. So teaching has started already from there. And then as we grow, we teach our friends. And then our family members, brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren, some of them. So teaching has been, or our neighbors. Okay, so teaching is a part of our, or what I say is education is a part of our daily routine, that I can say. Every day we learn something. So that's an education. Education just not only in books, in every form we get is an education. And second important part is learning. This is where the gap is. The act or process of acquiring knowledge or skill. That is, all of them, most teachers call them to be good educators. But what happens at some point of time, they feel that let me stop learning. I've learned a lot of things. Let me just start dispersing only what I know. Okay, that's not possible. So learning is a daily happening, or it is in our day-to-day routine that is there. And the most third important thing is innovation. So I think we should thank Zoom, whatever be that be, even it's a China product, okay, or the other platforms that are available. So innovation, without innovation, we would not be able to have connected ourselves or spend our time in this leisurely having, and I mean, we are on little relaxed when we have to do it from home. Okay, much relaxed to relive to actually listen to this. Yeah. I hope
not at newspapers.
Yeah. Okay. So for innovation, I would like to tell a simple example, which normally I share it with the students also. I think there was one person, if I remember, a French person, who told that to a carpenter, let us take as a carpenter, that I want to have a chair. I want to sit on a chair which is as comfort as possible. It should not have any legs. Okay, it should not have any say handrest, and it should be as comfortable as possible. So the carpenter had a lot of time to think. So yeah, that is a chair without legs, without handrest, and with a good comfortness. Then he invented what is called as a bean bag. Okay, I think all of us know that it's the bean bag, how comfortable it is for us to sit. So that's where innovation starts. So this is one simple innovation I can say that we have that we have seen in our recent past that is there. And with innovation always comes technology. So the technology is, what is it? After all, I know so many things. I got educated. I'm sharing my knowledge. I'm learning this, that, and so on. What should I do? I should find out an application of this knowledge for practical use. So a simple example. So if you are all commerce teachers, so we should know where we can apply our knowledge. We should find an application. We should find an application where whatever you have acquired as knowledge should be shared or should be used in that particular application. So as computer science professor, we develop a lot of applications, web applications, mobile applications, and so on. So as mathematicians, they come out with smaller tools. Example, there are a lot of tools like MATLAB, even say people like, even a lot of mathematicians have worked on this tool called as PowerPoint to bring things together. So technology is now at our fingertips. A simple example of technology is from button phone. Okay, button. So see, I can always say that we had landlines at home. So someone was too lazy even to walk to the landline. They wanted a mobile which they can carry wherever they want and not to move to a fixed place to make a call. And then we had such a big phone which was heavy with a lot of buttons and so on. Then people came and invented buttonless phones, or what we call as smartphones. So technology, so the application of the knowledge that they have gained has been put into technology. And enhanced technology is now what we are using, intensified technology. Enhanced, it's so intensified that you cannot move away from your, what we say as the, from our gadgets that are there. So that is what is intensified technology. So now I used to always share this as the first screen with my students. So what typically happens is, for a fair education selection, everybody has to climb the same, write the same exam. Okay, so please climb the tree. Example, I always quote JEE, NEET, anything, whatever be that, all these entrance examinations that are there. So what if all the animals have to take the same exam? Example, what happens if the fish has to climb the tree? It has to actually wonder and believe that it is stupidity for the fish to climb the tree or for an elephant to climb the tree. So today's scenario is what actually our education system is, but it is in our hands that we move it to a better condition tomorrow. It's we as educators will be able to move it to a better condition in the coming days that are there. So the grades, this is also an interesting, I used to get this message. So in 1960s or even till 60 to 2010, whenever there were grades which are terrible, okay, so the parents used to scold the children. But nowadays, we know very well, we are also feeling the heat. The post 2010, the parents are actually coming to the teachers and asking, why is my son or daughter scored less? So the scenario has changed, because we are the receiving end now. So no longer we are able to tell the student to even study properly. If we tell the student to study properly, they try to come in, like take some extreme steps. So what happens? We are in a fix now. So grades no longer matter for the students, it's only a matter for the teachers. So that's another scenario that we know very well today. And the next is a major question with the kids. The kids, I mean here, right from school to college, the kids that we meet up to 23, 24 years, I call them only as kids. So once I learn to Google, is that I'm already education ready? Is there anything that I have to learn more? So what happens? They have a question, why now? Why should we attend classes when I can get everything through online, when I'm able to Google and get it? So that is one major question that we'll have to break. Tell them what is right and what is wrong. Not that everything that is present in the internet is correct, because there could be a lot of information that is either overfed for them or underfed, or which could also be a wrong information that is given to them, because not all sites are completely checked for the content that is present. So the problem, we pity the children because there has been a lot of diversions for them. So we teach something, okay, in our say in our class, but they are actually on to so many things that are happening. So they are carried away by so many distractions that are there. Hundreds of television channels, including say channels for education, okay, and then there are a lot of peer pressure for them, saying that I bought this laptop, I bought this mobile. When are you going to change your mobile? When are you going to change your laptop? So the iPhones, advertisements, so many things. The media is actually putting a lot of pressure on them. That is why we see a lot of attention deficiency in the kids today. Because it's not because they have any problem. Their only problem is they are overloaded with so many things that are there. So the least thing that comes is sit in the class and listening to the professor is the least thing that they want to do, because they are over actually, what to say, I can say they are pressurized with so many things that are there. So how do we make them relax? So that is the biggest challenge that we have in today's education. So it is not just the teaching, making them understand what is right and wrong is what is our actual goal. So actually, I will tell all my students that the education that they do it in college is learning how to learn, nothing more than that. So after that, they're going to be on their own and they'll have to learn so many things which are new. So the 3 years or the 4 years that they spend in the college is mainly for them to understand how to learn new things. So that is what we have to impart, and that should be our goal when we do the teaching learning process that is there. So, and the next biggest problem is education has become a commodity. So there's a lot of pressure from the students and the parents because it has become a commodity. Recently, actually, I think all of you would have also got a small video from one of the doctors who was mentioning that that there are certain that is during this COVID-19 era. Okay, what we call what happens? There were a lot of classes which were going online. So I understand some class or second or third standard or fourth standard. So a student was sitting to the online class. Since the parents also did not have much of work to do or anything, the parent was also sitting with the student to see how the classes were going on. So I understand in that particular class, there has been some small mistake when the teacher taught. It happens to all of us. So even if what we do when we do have some doubts, he'll say, okay, the doubt seems to be valid. Let me come back tomorrow or in the next class and clarify. So I think there has been some mishap that happened or some miscommunication that happened when the teacher was teaching the class. And the parent immediately took it to the management of the school, saying that your teaching quality is so bad, this, that, and so on. And there was a lot of talk about that in the media that was there. But then the doctor actually he shared a very interesting say video, saying that if I am asked to allow, since the parents are free, if a son or a daughter has to be operated, and if they say allow me inside the theater, I will not be able to do, because the way that I do the surgery or anything will make them not understand what I'm doing. So they may not be able to give me directions or so. So he said that parents, please don't follow your children in the class. If they have difficulty, just guide them and then leave the class, so that leave the student and the teacher, because they will learn together. they will know how to fight with each other, they will know how to learn with each other, and so on. So don't be an actually observer taking down notes on what mistakes they do, because the parent says, okay, I am paying so much of fee, this, that, and so on. But essentially education has become another commodity for them, a degree. So my son has to get an MBBS degree, or this degree, that degree is more important for them than anything else. So that is another challenge that we have. So even I have such challenge, because we have large number of students who will say, I did not get JEE, so I am here in Amrita. Whereas Amrita is not my cup of tea. I want to do only in IIT. So, or I want to go only to this university, and so on. So we have challenges. We talk to them, make them understand that this is not, this is just another pass in their life, and this is not their only life that is there. So that is another challenge that we have. So teaching is the smallest challenge that we have, according to me. So the next that we have is the technology. Role of technology is beyond our imagination. So even I never thought that I'll have a Zoom call to give an FDP. So what happens? Every student has to. There are so many facilities that are available, so many technologies that are available today in education system in India. So a student has access to large number of gadgets, large number of, say, sites, information. So there's a lot of information that they'll be able to get. So we'll have to guide them to say how to choose the best among this. So which are all, for example, even sometimes I used to tell, these are the only authentic sites for this particular subject or the course. Please refer to them, because they are the ones that give you the best information. You cannot say don't use any technology, don't use Google, don't use this site, that site, and so on. But we can do an extra effort to say these are the 5 or the 6 or 7 or 10 authentic websites or web information that you can look at if you want to learn with technology that is there. So that is the biggest challenge. That is another challenge that we have. So the evolution of education, which we always say that. So until 1990, so kids who were born before 1990 and who studied in school, I can only say that before 1990 in school. So the teachers would teach the way they learned, and they did not have to bother about students, because a student has to learn from the teacher, as the teacher was considered as a guru. So whatever the teacher spoke was right, and so the teachers need not worry much about student needs, because whatever they taught was sufficient, and it could help them for their living and their life. So we normally talk about in our institution, normally we also have the value education classes, and also our guiding spirit, our Mata Amrita Andamai. So we used to say there are 2 types of education. One is education for life, and second is education for living. So education for life is their degrees, BCom, BSc, BA, whatever be that, BE, MBBS, whatever they get that. And education for living is what we should do.
Hello, ma'am. You're not audible. I think some network issue in our location. She'll be joining back shortly.
With the, I'll stop the video maybe.
Yeah, no
Is the
problem.
screen,
You can
yeah,
continue.
is the screen share visible?
No, not yet. It's off.
1 minute. Thank you. So 1990 to 2005, we called it the agile teacher model. That means they are no longer teachers, they are also mentors, coaches, okay, and they would adapt to how we have to teach the varying requirement of the students. So 90 to 2005, it was like more of mentoring, okay, and then we call them as coaches or mentors, so that we'll be able to do some mentoring and help them to do extra classes, okay. The concept of, that is why the concept of tuitions and then personal tuitions and all came, okay, because they wanted somebody who can personally monitor them, okay, and guide them, so that they'll be able to do much better in their academics. Post 2005, I can say it's a disrupting wave, okay. It was a mixed pedagogy, So there were a lot of MOOCs that opened. So I think all of us are aware. So like the Khan Academy and so on. So there was a big wave. So until now, I can say we are using this third wave. We are in the third wave, what we call as the MOOC wave, with different existing pedagogies that are there. And the fourth wave that we say is post 2020. That is, we call it as the post COVID era. So, education to empower the learner, and not just through style, but also through access. So, we have tried everything. We have tried mentoring, we have tried to change our technology or pedagogy and so on. But finally, what has come is that it is education to empower the learner. So, the learner has to get some value addition. What is the value addition by attending our class or our sessions? Is what is the expectation from them? So this is a hard lesson that we learned through this COVID-19 exercise that we had. We are going to unfold. This is what in our session today. So we know in the earlier education system, we had Gurukula. The teacher and the pupil lived together in distant places, and they were mainly taught. We have to look at this: philosophy, arts, science, administration, and military techniques. So this is what was taught in Gurukula. So everybody will be good in philosophy, everybody will be good in arts, science, astronomy, astrology, administration. They learn a lot of administration. I think we have learned in Gurukula, normally they learn everything, right from cutting wood for the fire, okay, to making big books and the education materials that were there. And they also learned the military techniques. And during the medieval period, we had the madrasas and Vedic schools were much dominant, and they used to give a lot of what we call as the spiritual learning also, okay, related to the religion and so on. Then actually, the modern system where we are, I think all of us are aware that it was introduced by the British in 1830s, which limited to specific subjects like science, mathematics, language, history, geography, and civics. So the two important things, philosophy, metaphysics, and military techniques, were considered to be unnecessary in the school education, and it's completely removed it. And whereas the modern mode of teaching was confined to classroom. So, but whereas the teacher-student relationship became much more stronger, we started looking at our teachers as role models. If I remember, I think till 6th or 7th standard, everybody, most of us would like to become only a teacher, looking at our teachers. Okay, most of them in the class will say, I want to become a teacher. So that was the relationship that was there. And the second half of the 19th century, we had missionaries like Ramakrishna Mission, the Theosophical Society of India, which tried to combine both the Western pattern or the Western practices and the ancient knowledge to inspire the younger minds that are there. So after independence, post-independence, British colonial model education system gradually evolved. So we forgot all those, and now we are all totally bookish. The school education is totally a bookish education that is there. So presently, e-learning through technology, many of the schools are moving towards digitization. So I think all of us, when we go back, we'll see more and more digitization in our campuses. That's what I think. So all those, say, senior administrators are sitting on thinking on how do we enhance our technology? How do we move more towards digitization? So there's a radical change in education system, that is from teaching religion, Vedas, scriptures, etc., to coaching technologies like e-commerce, virtual reality, and programming. That's what we have become. So what happens is we have to put a lot of efforts in understanding the new technologies and then teaching it to the students or promoting it among the students. So what are the challenges that we have in our Indian education system, which is very much unique to Indian education system? I can even say that because I've done some lot of work on this on the education system across different countries that are there. So the diversity in terms of languages, culture, and acceptability of all religions. That's the first biggest challenge that we have. So, for example, we are using English to communicate. Okay, now our conversation is only through English. Though I have my colleagues and friends from Sikkim, Manipal, Bihar, Kanyakumari, Kerala, Andhra, we don't have a common language. So we have to accept this diversity in terms of language, culture, and acceptability of all religions. That is one thing that we have to have, the tolerance and acceptability. And second most important challenge is expenditure on education. What is the cost? So the education has become, as we see, it has become a commodity. So if you want to get enrolled into into a best school for economics and commerce, then they say your yearly fees is around 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs, and so on. So what happens? The expenditure on education has become very high, and the gross enrollment pattern is not that promising in India. Though Kerala is the only country that many countries want to adopt the Kerala model. So Kerala has seen the highest number of, actually what we say as the literary percentage. So our enrollment pattern in college is much lesser when compared to the schools. So if you look at the number of students who take 10th standard public examination in your state, and the number of students who take 12th standard public examination in the state, and the number of students who enroll into engineering courses, who enroll into science courses, arts courses, say commerce, humanities, and so on, if we take the total sum, it doesn't tally at all. So where are those people in between? That means we have a problem in the enrollment pattern. So that has to be addressed. So it's a national mission which has to be addressed with lot of rather care. Why it is important, I'll tell you in the next slide. And capacity utilization, I know very well capacity utilization is much lesser. I can say that in India, I read somewhere the capacity utilization, the capacity in the sense I mean to say, there could be somebody with a very high degree or a good qualified educator, but they may not be able to actually either do an be an professor, or there could be some other issues that they are not doing the teaching. Okay, so the capacity utilization, I read somewhere that it is around 18% in India. So that means the best heads are still not either in teaching or not best in the industry. Either they are good in teaching and they are in industry, or they could be good in administration and they are in teaching, vice versa, and so on. And a large number of them doing other things, entrepreneurs, and some of the good women are at home, okay, just teaching only their children. Okay, so there is a big problem of capacity utilization, which countries like Germany and France have completely tapped it. So they track every individual. They find out what is their qualification and see to that everybody contributes to the nation. That is also very important. Then infrastructure facilities, I think we have to admit it. Though we say we are all Zoom, that, this, and so on, our infrastructure is still needs a lot of improvement. We are a growing country. We should accept it. That's not an issue. Definitely infrastructure will actually be the next boom that comes in this COVID era. So infrastructure, people will start investing on infrastructure. Even for example, at home, I never bothered about buying an headphones because I'm not comfortable. But now I feel that, okay, I should have a better headphones, and then what is it, the earplugs that are there, because there are many at home. There are nearly 3-4 of us at home. Each one has to use the computer. Each one has to talk in Zoom, this, that, and so on. So it could have been useful if we had a good headphones or an earplugs or whatever we did. So what happened is that I think somebody has a query. Dinesh, can you just please address? Okay.
Sure.
So, yeah. Then the next is the student-teacher ratio. So I think UGC gives some norms, 15:1, 12:1, 10:1. Okay, AICT gives some norms. So still we are not able to meet the student-teacher ratio. That is going to be the next challenge that we have. So if the student-teacher ratio increases, there'll be more and more of personalized learning. That's what we are aiming at all. And accreditation and branding, quality standards. We know very well, all our institutions are pushing us, and we also have to raise our actually standards by getting NAC accreditation. I appreciate the Auxilium College for their excellent performance in NAC. So we have something called as NBA when it comes to engineering institutions, ABET. Okay, so many accreditations that are there. So, and branding is very important in order to maintained equality. And the next is the students studying abroad. Here, I mean, what I mean to say is students studying abroad are students who have the intention to go abroad for a higher studies. That ratio is very high. Maybe not this year. Let's not talk about this one of a scenario now. So this is also a challenge. How do we equip them? Because internationally, we have different standards of education. How do we put our students par with other countries? I understand and I know that the large number of students who belong to the non-engineering programs go to countries like Australia. Australia is a big boom for education now. Large number of students who do commerce, economics, accountancy go to Australia and excel well in their studies. So Indian, they say that it is good. The Indian, whatever be the humanities stream has provided them the base that is required, but still there are a lot of challenges in terms of delivery and the mode of pedagogy that we have. So that is also a biggest challenge that we have in the Indian education. So that's one thing. So the next is what is the purpose of education? So education, actually we have something called as education 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0. Just like we have our mobile phones, iPhone 10, 10X or Android, whatever be that is there. We have education 1.0 where the parents cared for it and the educators imposed whatever, as I was mentioning, we impose whatever. So if you take our teachers who were teaching us in second, third, fourth standard, they impose. For example, if we don't write our homework, we used to get 10 times redo this, 10 times write it, or 100 times keep on be standing and reciting it, kneel down. But I think nowadays those things have gone at all. So there's no imposing, and it was driven by religion. We'll have to accept it. And education 2.0 was, parents thought that education is for capability. The first is for care. They just wanted to care that the child should be safe in some school or college during the day so that they can do their chores easily. So the second is they thought that the students or the parents thought that children should have the capability to survive. And educators had the imprint. They'll follow the imprint and in line and spirit follow whatever is given in the book. And it was driven by government in education 2.0. Whereas education 3.0, parents are competitive. So I know that parents are more competitive than the children. So I know in some of the schools, my colleagues used to tell that if some boy or girl in the second or third standard scores 79.5 for 80 or 89.5 for 90, the parents will come the next day and ask, why did my son lose half mark or daughter lose half mark? So they take it as a competition. So they never feel that they have to do a capacity building, just become a competition. Because if there is a very high competition, I don't deny, because by 0.01 or 0.1 they miss an say entry into a top institution in India. So that is also the reason for it. And educators have started inspiring students. So the inspiration comes from the teachers now. So what happens is teachers inspire, make them, so we have become coaches and speakers and role models, and then we need to give them mentors, mentor them, inspire them in that. And the society is aiming for advantage. So what will the society thinks, what will, if 100 graduates come out of this particular skill, okay, with this skill, how will it benefit the society? So the society has started thinking on this. So this is a very important matrix that we can remember. So I can say that the education version 1.0 is, I will deliver the content at my place. You come to me and learn whatever I teach. And education 2.0 is, I'll adjust and teach what it gives you the best for the success. So that is, I think, people like me were in education 2.0. And when we studied in our school and college. So education 3.0 is, I'll provide you with resources, content, so you can learn what you need in the way that works for you, whenever and wherever you are. And I will then make sure myself is available to help you and apply that learning in a useful manner. This is the commitment that we give to our students presently. So what is this education 3.0? What is presently in most of the institutions? It's a confluence of three crucial elements. That is neuroscience, cognitive, that is psychology, and education technology. I think a lot of educationists, I saw them signing up. They'll be able to talk more about it on this. So we call it as the 3 C's. Connectors, we are connectors, we are creators, and we are constructivists. So that means what is it altogether? So it is a confluence of creativity. So we have to make them be more creative. Critical thinking, that's become an order of the day now. Competency, build them the core competencies that are required. So everybody should be able to do problem solving. Okay, so care, cognition, content, classes, calculation, communication, compelling questions. That means they should be able to question, understand, and inquisitiveness should be there to ask in their learning. The challenge, computer literacy, context, culture, all this in our top of mind, or these are our C's that we should take care when we talk about our the 3 C's. The 3 C's expand to so many C's in our, that should be the issue for academia. So is it that this is the only thing that we have? The 8 characteristics of the education 3.0 are, that is, the first is the meaning. What is the meaning of education 3.0? What is the goal of it? Social, constructed, and contextually reinvented. So it is based on the social requirement. Actually, the meaning is we'll have to do our courses or the programs based on the social requirement, and it should be reinvented. That is, we teach the same science, the same history, but should be relevant to the present context that is there. So that is the first meaning of education 3.0. And the second characteristic is that the universe is digital universe, that is, technology is everywhere. So that is what we should take as an important characteristic of education 3.0. Then co-constructivism, fully infused in society. That means schools are located everywhere. In the earlier days, my parents used to tell me that for school they have to travel 6 kilometers, 7 kilometers, passing through an river, so taking a boat, this, that, and so on. But now schools are everywhere. And the parents also think that it's a learning for them. So learning for parents, they view the schools as a place of learning. And location everywhere, that is, teachers are everybody everywhere. That's what they assume as infrastructure. And the expectation, industry views graduates as co-workers or entrepreneurs. So they call them as industry ready. So that is the finishing school concept. The industry says, will I be able to apply your graduate or send your graduate the next day to the work without any training or anything that needs to be imparted? So industry readiness, these are the 8 important characteristics of education 3.0. So the scenario is looking like this, so complex it is. So educator sits at the right end as an educator or a resource guide. Okay, and the learners as teachers. The learners could be teachers, and learner as a connection maker. Okay, open access to information. So learners as a content producer and sharer, social networking. So the web as a curriculum. So then diversity of network. So many things that put together as the job of the 3 C's, that is the connector, creator, and constructivist that is there. So we have to be a connector, connect students. So that means we have to make them understand what is peer learning, what is teacher student learning, and what are the different types of learning methods that are available for them to educate themselves in a better manner. So what is the teacher's mindset? I think you will accept it and agree with whatever I say. First thing is that I must lose control. I must not lose control over the class. That's always in our mind. The second is I need to teach using the textbook. The most important thing is I don't have enough time. So I need more training. I have always been successful to do chalk and talk. So why do I need a technology? I need to teach the test. So there are so many things. That is the teacher's mindset. That's why we are actually confusing ourselves or finding it too difficult to actually accommodate in along with the students in their mindset that is there. So what is the questions? What are the questions in front of us? Where are we now? Education 3.0. What will be the next? Is there education 4.0? how to embrace technology, how do we enhance ourselves. And the simple trick for all this is, don't worry anything, learn to tame the tiger. So that is what is the words of my professor. So my professor, when I said that I'm joining, I'm taking academia, because I was in industry for 10 years. And when I wanted to move to the academia, I went and met my professor and asked him, can I move to teaching? Because I think industry, I've done enough of 10 years of work. It's not worth spending, I believe, according to me at that time. So I want to spend time with students, I told him. He told it is very simple. Moving into academia, he's a very senior professor. He retired. He's around 85 years now. He told me moving to academia is very simple. Only thing you should learn to tame the tiger. I told, tiger, what is it? Can I tame a tiger? He told, that is what is education all about, or educator all about. So getting into an education or becoming an academician is like catching the tail of a tiger. That means you should learn to tame the tiger. That means you have to keep on be updating yourself. Keep yourself abreast with technology. Keep yourself abreast with what is happening in daily in your field of work. That is in your field. That is either be computer science or English or whatever be that. And second, if you cannot tame the tiger will eat you up. That means you'll be lost in the academia. You can never put yourselves in front. You will never have confidence to do anything. So that is the simple thing he told me. The simple trick is to learn to tame the tiger. So I asked him how to learn to tame the tiger. He told very simple, keep yourself abreast, keep reading all the media. So he told, keep reading newspapers, connect to the students, keep reading technical journals, keep reading, say, technical magazines that come. Those days we used to get Data Quest, PC Quest, they were the few magazines. And keep learning, reading about the latest things that are happening in your field so that you will be able to speak with confidence to the students. So you should always be ahead of the students in terms of what you deliver in the class. So do not prepare 1 hour before the class or anything. Be much prepared. Be much confident on what you're going to speak so that you gain your confidence and the students also gain the confidence on you, that is it. So that's the trick that I can share. So learn to tame the tiger. So what is this next evolution? Yes, we are already in education 4.0. Okay, so what is this education 4.0 is? So it is just a simple, a connectivity across. So every graduate has so many challenges that they have to actually be ready for. Every graduate has to understand all these things before they get their degree in hand. Whose job it is? It is educationist's job. Okay, we have to be a constructivist so that we'll be able to give them the best what they can do. So what is the vision of education 4.0 is to respond to the needs of industry 4.0. That is the fourth industrial revolution which is happening, where man and machine align to enable new possibilities that are there. So we know very well, we never thought about ATM. So how do we get money? Okay, we never believed that we can do a digital transformation, or we can do a digital money, a plastic money, okay, a money without money. So that is what man and machine. So that is the fourth industrial revolution which has already started, and then we are onto it. The second vision is to harness the potential of digital technologies, personalized data, and open source content. So we call it as open source content. No longer data, whatever you keep it is useful if you don't share it with others. So just like as teachers, we need to share our knowledge. So the data has to be shared in open source so that everybody appreciates and actually uses whatever we have. And to establish a blueprint for future of learning, lifelong learning. So I think this is one of the important aspects that comes in outcome-based education also. So lifelong learners, the students have to become lifelong learners. So from childhood to schooling, to continuous learning in workplace, and to learning to play a better role in the society. So that is the vision of education 4.0. So what are the components? Future skills. So that is what we are here today. What are the skills that are required for the children for in the future in your own area of say academics, be it language teachers or mathematics teachers or commerce teachers. So the future skills have to be actually understood and should be incorporated in our curriculum, because 100-year life has become very simple nowadays. Okay, so that's what everybody expects also. So 100-year life means we have lot of future. So we'll have to be more future ready in terms of how do we build our that's an important component in education. And the most important thing is the millennial mindset. So the mindset of the children have to be understood, and so that we are able to accommodate inside our. No longer we say in our classrooms, don't bring mobile phones or use them. Okay, we allow them to bring mobile phones, use it in the better way. So suppose I have something that we are discussing, something important in the class. We say, okay, all of you can find out what is the meaning of this, or how many applications are available, or how many, for example, in every first class of my say semester, I will say, find the top 10 researchers in this particular area of study. Say, I think you would have seen in my profile, I teach image processing. So I give an exercise to the students saying that in the first class, find the top 10 researchers who are working in image processing. How will they do? They'll have to Google and find out who is better, make a presentation and give that. So to another batch I give, find out the top 10 universities which are offering this course. So what happens is we cannot change the millennial mindset that easily and say, stop using mobile phones, I'll put jammers and so on. I think it's all meaningless in this education 4.0. And then digital networks and devices, that is another important component. We have to have good connectivity, personal data. So we should actually tell them which data is personal and which data is not personal. Recently, I saw some of the posts in Facebook. Someone's aunt or uncle that only 20 or 30 people can attend any funeral, that person has posted the pictures of the funeral in Facebook. What is this? I was so taken a shock, and I was feeling too bad that what data can they share in Facebook. So this is unexpected and it is not required. If it is so, you want to show that, I think those things should not be shown, and it affects a lot of mindset of people that is there. So we should be able to tell them what is the personal data that they can show or share in the public domain, or what is the data that they should not share in public domain. And collaboration platforms, what are all the platforms that they can use? Can you do on mobile learning, WhatsApp? So many collab platforms are available. So which are the ones that we can choose? And the talent investment, because they are going to invest their talents with us. The 3 or 4 years that they spend with us is the time that is changing their life for the next 30, 40 years. So we should take it in mind and see how best we can extract the talents from them. So shared content and resources. So plenty of resources are available. This diagram shows clearly the ones we'll have to tell them which is the perfect one or which is the better one that will be useful for them. And the social progress, because it works along with the social progress. All that they do will help them to progress socially in their life. So what is education 4.0 altogether is anytime, anywhere. They can sit anywhere and they learn anywhere. So some of us could also be listening to this talk while walking or while traveling. And second is personal. So personalized learning. So there would be some fast learners. So normally we categorize students as slow learners, medium learners, and fast learners. So and then how do we cater our education to these three different type of categories that are there? And flexible delivery. For example, we talk 1 hour. So all students may not be able to take it within that 1 hour. They can take whenever they wanted. We give them chunks of videos or our lectures, and they can repeatedly hear from us that is there. And peers and mentors, that's also a very important. So we have to have lot of activities which will actually do a peer learning and mentor learning. Within the students, we can find some mentors. We do that also. And then ask them to mentor the students, help them out in their difficulty. Why or where and not what or how. Okay, that is also important in our education 4.0. and practical application. So reading this, where will I go to? What is the use of reading this course? What is the use of me learning this subject? So you will have to give them practical implementation or application where this will be useful. And then modular projects. Don't give them a large one. Give them smaller chunks of projects which they can progressively do throughout the semester so that they are able to get a good project at the end of the year. Then student ownership. They should be able to take the ownership. So give more freedom to them in choosing what they want to do. Okay, and it is the most important thing is they have to be evaluated and not examined. So I think the term called as examination should go away, and we should call it as end semester evaluation. We actually call it so, more of evaluation and not as examination. So examination is something like you examine what is the authority that we have to examine them. We are going to evaluate them on how they have understood. Has the teaching learning process been successful or useful? We'll have to do this. So so the trends in education 4.0 are accelerate remote learning, personalized learning. We will see that choice of education tools, project-based learning and field-specific experience learning, data analysis and changes in exam pattern and assessment. All these are the trends in education 4.0. So accelerate remote learning in the sense that is, we should be able to give them e-learning tools and provide them opportunities for remote and self-paced learning. So they can learn it in their own pace. So classrooms will change, wherein theoretical knowledge will be imparted outside the classroom, while practical or experiential knowledge will be imparted face to face. So we can load, if we are just going to give PowerPoint in the class, we can preload the PowerPoint and tell them, be prepared with all this. We'll do an activity in the class. So we'll have to give more of experience in the class, and anything that we want to share theoretical can be shared outside the class. And personalized learning. So I think we also do that in Amrita University, and even CBSE had a model like this last year. I'm not sure if they implemented. Like we prepare 2 sets of assessment. So above average students are given some more challenging questions that are present, and the slow learners and the medium learners are given slightly lesser slightly easier questions, so that they are not left. The fast learners will feel more challenging. Otherwise, they'll say it is boring. There's nothing new in the course. Okay, and the slow learners will still have feeling that it is tough, tough, tough. So what we decided in all our internal assessments, 1 or 2 places I've implemented it, that in the quiz or the assignments that we do, the slow learners and the medium learners will be given less challenging problems, and the maximum mark that they grade that they can get will also be fixed. Whereas the fast learners, the students who are above average, will be given more challenging questions so that they can get any mark that they want. So the slow learners and the fast learners, and there is a good, actually what we say, a customized teaching and learning that happens. Customized teaching as well as a customized learning that is there. This implies that there will be individual learning processes for each student. So it will give them more confidence in their place that is there. So this will result in better understanding of the concept. So this is much useful, and we have tried it and it works. Okay. And choice of education tools. So now it is bring your own device. Flipped classroom, for example. So you can ask the students to bring their own device, be it tablets, laptops, mobiles, and then use them for the teaching learning process that is there. And the next important thing is project-based learning. So this has to be implemented. So give them, instead of giving a course only with theory and so on, can give them some real-time problems that are available and make them take that as projects. So during the project, they will learn organization skills. So it can be a smaller groups, 3, 4. It could also be as small as 2. They'll learn time management, and they'll know how to collaborate with their academic peers, and as well as it will help them in their employment. They can confidently write in their resume that they have done. These are the projects that they have done. So project-based learning in Amrita, we have implemented a lot of such courses as project-based courses itself. So that means the end semester there is no examination. The output itself is a project. We have not only the project, many courses themselves as project. Okay. So not only in computer science, it is in English, it is in mathematics, everywhere in all the streams we have brought in this. So the next is field specific experience. So we can give them some field work. So not that every time we have to teach them only and then take them only through examination mode. We can do them some field specific knowledge, ask them to do some field specific, let's say internships and then projects, and then that could be the part of the course itself. Okay. So data analysis, this is what is very important. All of us have to gear to use computers and make all kinds of statistical analysis, be it English course or mathematics course or computer science or economics or commerce. So all students should be trained on theoretical knowledge as well as use computers to the maximum possible extent in order to assess the patterns and predict the trends that are happening. And then the last and not the least, that is on the exam pattern and the assessment. So traditional Q&A or subjective writing should fade away. Okay, and innovation, creative and critical thinking will be part of the assessment that is there. So that is this the new norm for years? Yes. So the new World Bank report says low education outcome and poor quality of education are the biggest impediments to the faster economic growth of a country, as the young continue to be trapped in poverty. I think I told you why this is important for us is India's demographic structure is changing. While the world grows older, in 2025, India will have 2/3 of its workforce with a young age group. So we need to actually cater to them. So that is why our role becomes very important in this education 2.0. So a few questions in front of us. Whether India's higher education is relevant to the era. Why should a student pay for education when he is able to earn his livelihood after getting his degree? So he is not able to get a job. So we also have an unemployment problem. So why should a student attend class when more updated knowledge is available to him via outside resources? We don't have answers. And if we start answering, all these answers will not be encouraging and positive, because we have 904 universities and more than 47,000 colleges operating today like degree producing factories, and not bothering, I cannot say not bothering, but less bothering about the employability of students. So we have to address, I don't have a solution or none of us have a solution. This has to be taught and then discussed with all administrators and educators to get an answer to these questions. So the education 4.0, the paradigm is it demand-led instead of supply-led education. So based on the demand, we'll have to give the education. Competency-based instead of knowledge-based, and incorporate disruptive technologies and skill sets. Lifelong learning instead of front-loaded learning. So it's now front-loaded learning, or I can say semi-front-loaded learning that is there. Modular degree instead of one-shot going. So somebody is not able to do a 3-year BCom course. Nothing wrong. They can do it at their pace, in their own pace. Okay. I think somebody has raised the hand. Dinesh, can you check? Okay. So, and emphasis on emotion quotient than the intelligent quotient. So we'll have to give more importance to EQ than the IQ. So all this put together is called the OECD framework. That is, it is happiness and well-being is the first conclusiveness of education 4.0. So there is a framework actually released by OECD, an organization for economic cooperation and development, learning for 2030. So if you look at this diagram itself looks complex, okay, but there is nothing. Whatever we are doing, we'll have to do it much more modularized. That's all. So the goal post is well-being 2030. So OECD is working on this. Actually, this is a French-based organization, but it is across all the countries. They are working with a lot of educators on this. Okay. So the curriculum design is very important. So the important policies that we as teachers have to actually look at now is curriculum overload. Don't overload everything into the curriculum. Give them some flexibility to learn with lot of choices that are there. Managing the time lag between today's curriculum and future needs. Don't set the curriculum for 3 years, 4 years, and so on. We keep the curriculum little open so that we can include electives whenever we want at the end of the 3rd year, so that the students are benefited. So ensuring equity through curriculum innovations, and managing curriculum flexibility and autonomy, embedding values into the curriculum. This is what is very important, because a lot of the children today lack this value education. So by value education, I don't mean teaching spirituality or anything of that. They should understand what is relationship, what is important. I have a slide on that, what we should impart in that, and deciding and planning for effective implementation. So these are some of the rather important questions or important points that we'll have to look at this. So the crux of education 4.0 is global connectivity, smart machines, social and digital media and education, teaching mechanism worldwide. We'll have to look at that, and then adapt it, virtual learning environment, and alternative schooling. I think homeschooling is becoming much popular today. Many of the parents are preferring homeschooling so that they want to do an alternative schooling at home. Okay. So what will be the impact of education 4.0 is, so it will not only transform the way it is important, it will also, the way the students perceive the education will also change. So education 4.0 will change the teaching learning methodologies and make the students future ready also. It's important that we make them industry ready or future ready, that is there. And then, so what is important in education 4.0 in India? We talk about so many things. So the third and the important fourth points are important. That is, I think all of you should look at this National Education Policy 2019 draft prepared by the 9-member Kasturagam Committee. So I know I think you would have looked into this, but please have a look into it, which says it has to be rolled out in 2020, but maybe this COVID era has delayed it little. The policy comes at a time where the fourth industrial revolution is already underway and disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence have emerged. So it endorses government think tank Niti Aayog, I think all of you know that, highlights the challenges of leveraging artificial intelligence in India. So the big force that will be imparted into the education is artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, and Internet of Things. Whatever be your field of study, we'll have to embed them into your field of study, into the academic curriculum that is there. So education now largely emphasizes on the way it is taught, and by aligning the future trends to make learners of tomorrow, leaders and learners of tomorrow. So the solution is, we have 4.0s, Industry 4.0, Curriculum 4.0, Faculty 4.0, and Parenting 4.0. So this is the solution that we have. So Industry 4.0, there is a fourth industrial revolution. So how will India benefit from this? Manufacturers will improve productivity, efficiency. So I think already India is moving on towards it. We have Skill India, Digital India, all those will become, so SMEs will become more agile. Okay, skilled workforce in areas of cognitive robotics, advanced automation, and ICT, and manufacturing will change into an innovative pattern that is there. So curriculum 4.0, that is where we are interested in. So the McKinsey's Global Institute says that nearly 51% of the jobs will go for automation in next 3 to 4 years. So what happens to our children? So we'll have to look at that. So unemployment shouldn't be a problem. How should we prepare our future generations? Is problem solving skills, creative thinking, digital skills, and teamwork are in a great demand. So though I talk about school here means college, includes college education as well. So focus must be on imparting a skill-based curriculum and artificial intelligence and all new tools that you have to use. So curriculum 4.0, so a comprehensive framework for continuous upgradation in academic administration. Existing courses should be continuously upgraded to meet industry demands. In addition, new courses or modules should be added to fill the required gap, skill gap, that is the finishing school what I talk about. So course content should be more user-friendly and accessed, and can be accessed from multiple delivery modes that are there. And such content will enable switching between online, blended learning, or on-campus modes of learning, and so on. And academic institute should launch shorter certifications for professionals looking for enhanced employability. Say somebody is already with a degree, MCOM, okay, they want to improve their employability or enhance their employability, we should be able to give them some short-term programs that are available. So now comes to our part. What is Faculty 4.0? What should we do? Should go in hand with curriculum 4.0. That means tame the tiger. So teachers should focus their efforts on using technology applications. So we should have personalized adaptive learning techniques should be adapted. So teacher student interaction should be based on a smart approach to make the whole experience engaging and interesting. That's very important. And opportunities, I think all colleges and universities have to build the infrastructure. Think of an ecosystem, how to actually do cater to this futuristic learning that paves the path towards the big Indian dream that we have. So if we have to have our economy, if we have to become the top 5 nations in the next 5 years, this is going to be much more important. So investing on education and infrastructure becomes very much essential. Not just the few institutes which are IOE alone has to do, the entire nation has to be actually focusing towards it. So faculty, how do we upgrade? So it is not no longer our degree, what I did 10 years before or 20 years before in my college will hold. I'll have to keep on be doing extra courses. So I have to keep on be learning, lifelong learning to ensure first our employment, and second is upskilling so that we keep ourselves abreast with the industry and the student needs that are there. And education institutions should ensure that their students should possess hard and soft skills to be future ready jobs. So hard skills as well as soft skills become very important. So life skills, I can say it should be life skills that should be important. And we must ensure that the students inculcate the necessary attitude. So they should have the attitude to become a lifelong learner. So we should tell them this 3-year or 4-year degree is not just the end of your life. You are just going to start your learning from the day that you graduate. So how do we enhance our teaching learning experience? Uncover the why, go beyond the text and reasoning the topic. That's what beyond the curriculum. So I think normally in NBA, NAT, they ask, what did you teach beyond the curriculum? So we should say that beyond the course that is there, this is what is important. And evaluate your own performance every semester, not just, I mean, the evaluation done by the institution or anything. At the end of a semester, stop and think about everything that has transpired. What will you do in the next edition of the course? How will you improve your subject next time when you teach it? So I'm going to teach example, the microeconomics. So the next time, or I'm going to teach any other course, next time a literature, next time what value addition can I bring into the queue? So let your curiosity lead you. So collect everything that catches your eye. For example, take a nice photograph to the class and ask them to write an exercise in the morning. So normally we say if we have a 40 or a 50-minute class, the students' attention span is only 25 to 30 minutes. But our classes are 40, 50, 55 minutes and so on. So we have to make them engage them. So not engage them in chit chat or anything. Maybe you can take some, everything that catches your eyes, you can take it. For example, take a nice photograph to the class and ask them to write an exercise connecting to your course and that particular photograph that is there. For example, as I told, you may take the top 5, an advertisements that are happening. And if your course is an business administration course, you can ask them to write about it. In English, I have even seen teachers bringing in some advertisement and then asking them to reframe the statements and so on, and the sentences. So we can make it much more curious to the learners and create your own assessment tools. So plan for shorter quiz that is there, short assignments so that we'll have a continuous engagement with the students that are there. And peer discussions, that is discuss among yourselves. So in my class, when I taught this, it was like this. In my class, when I taught it, this was like this. So you can exchange notes and experience between the peers. That is the wealth of experience that we have in our, fortunately in our academic group that is there. Not only from your own colleagues, also from other institutions if possible, you can connect to them. So parenting 4.0, I don't want to touch that because it's very much ambitious, okay, with so many. So we call them as Generation Z. So they are the Gen Z kids. So these are the things that are in front of them. So parenting becomes much more actually challenging. So we call them as Gadget Gen. So the important dimensions, I just putting it in one crisp slide, because I have brought up my children in this generation. So we teach them money management. So learn to say no to the children. Don't say that, okay, before you ask, I have given it, given that, blah, blah, and so on. Learn to teach them with a no. So whatever, not that for everything we should say no. So don't encourage everything, buying everything and giving everything. They should know the value of money. They should know to manage the money. So healthy food habits, I think this COVID has taught this lesson to us. Sustainability and environment, self-confidence. This I think is lacking in many children. So we'll have to build them the self-confidence that you can do it and you will be able to do it provided you do these precautions or prerequisites. Integrity, so disaster management. Okay, Indian history is valuable. Indian constitution is more valuable. Indian political science, they should know politics. Don't stop the children from learning politics. Let them learn because it will be useful for them. They'll have to wade through this and so on. And most important above all this is the value of relationship. Value of relationship, I can talk about all relationship. Relationship with siblings, relationship with parents, relationship with friends. When they come out to the college, we see a lot of, invaluable relationship. So we should also teach them what is value in that. So what is it that when you do a co-education, what relationship is valued? What is friendship? What is beyond friendship and so on? So that is also an important thing that comes to the parenting 4.0. So, and then just to put everything onto us. So some of the e-teaching tools that are available, very simple. You can create your own tools. Put all the current notes, put all the current training materials, audios, videos, images, and so on, and assemble the contents into any LMS. Okay, and deliver it to the class. Creative interactive books. You would have seen about e-books, but iBooks are very much important. I have some iBooks in my field of course. I don't know about in each field. So look for some interactive books that are available. Some of the popular platforms that we are using are MS Teams. We have something called as Amrita View, AView, which also we use. It's a free software, which is a virtual classroom platform. So you can just go to Google and say AView. You'll be able to download and install it. It's a virtual classroom platform. So it is useful. It is useful for collaborative learning. You can put a lot of material. More than 4 lakh people in India or throughout the world are using this AView also. Okay. Some references. Don't think everything that I have is from my, say this one. These are some of the references from where I have taken this slides. So the journey to the topic, I think I have done some justice. I have just discussed about what is education, what is learning, what is innovation, what is technology, and what is enhanced technology that is there. So the summary is education is moving to education 4.0. Learning is learn from home, work from home, learn from home, and stay at home. So that is what is the learning that we had. Innovation, new teaching pedagogies, more of case studies, projects, field-based learning. Technology, completely ICT-based. Enhanced technology is flipped classes, blended learning, teaching, interactive teaching, e-teaching, virtual classrooms. Learn to teach in sun or dark. That is what we learned. So wherever we are, we should be able to teach. Okay, the moment we see something on the board, we should start teaching it. So that is what we have learned now. And just to finally to wind up, the university where I am coming from, so we are led by the world-renowned humanitarian leader, Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, whom the world calls Amma. She is a chancellor of the university and she is the guiding force that is there. And the university is top ranked among the private institutes. So the ranking that is there, 601 to 800 in the world rankings, 800 to 1000 in the world rankings by QS, and the BRICS ranking. And we are the first private university in India which has got the top ranking in NIRF. And that is about the university. And about my department, I belong to the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. So which started in 1995. We are very young as a university and a department, unlike Auxilium College. So our milestones are here. So we became Deemed University in 2003. So we have the BTech program, which has an annual intake of 400 students. and MTech in Computer Science Engineering with an annual intake of 30 students, and an MTech in Artificial Intelligence and Data Science with an intake of 30 students, and a PhD program. We have large number of PhD scholars working in our department. I engaged with our department. And about me, I think already they have told. So my special interest is women in education. Okay, that's my interest. So I'm ready to do anything for women in education. I always throw my hands up and say, yes, I'm ready, I'm available for women in education. Because every year I do a lot of workshops on this, women in education and technology. Okay, so anything, any institution which is interested to connect to me can connect to me, so that I'll be able to give you my best that experience that I have done in my 30 years of experience in industry, teaching, and research. Okay, so I'm married and then settled with 2 children. Of course, they are not children now, they are grown up. My son is an engineer, he works in Germany. My daughter is a lawyer, she works in Chennai. So both of them are, of course, they are in their mid-20s. Okay, so I'm married and then settled. My husband is a chief marketing officer in a good company in Coimbatore, and I'm born, brought up, and settled in Coimbatore. That's one another advantage that I have. So thank you all for your patience. I just want to wind up with Amma's this one. So youngsters need to understand the purpose of life. Amma always tells us they need the courage and wisdom to face the challenges of life. With that understanding, they become the light of world. And if we care for them responsibly, molding their whole character with love, then the future of the world will be safe. That's what Amma says whenever she talks to us. Okay. Thank you all for the patience. So I'm available for, I'm throwing the floor for discussions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you so much, Doctor, for your valuable presentation. I'm sure. So the early start with the morning blessings, and also with the power-packed presentation as we expected. So it's definitely it moves the participants towards the next 7 days of the remaining 13 days of the session. So with Auxilium's the power of blessings given today morning, and with the Amma's blessings which you have thrown away today. So it's going to be a super duper knowledge sharing session with with a lot of energy and passion. So thank you so much for sharing the same energy in the morning. So thank you all the participants for remaining active throughout the sessions. So I'll just open for the questions over here. If you have any questions, if you want to post in the chat box, you can post in the chat box, or else if you want to ask question, you can just raise your hands over there, and then you can unmute yourself, and then you can ask. If you want to open your video during the question and answer session only, and those who are going to ask the questions only, you can, if you want, you can open your video, you can switch on your video, or you just switch on your unmute your audio, and then you can go ahead. Yes, we have Mr. Prabhagar Srinivasan, so you can just ask. Yeah.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Prabhakar.
So your voice is not audible, sir.
Whatever you told, no, put in the session.
Yeah.
So I am from IFM college.
Could you pardon me? Could you please repeat?
So you have too much of this wind noise, sir. The wind blowing. If you are near to fan or near to any, if you're traveling, just stay in a single place. Maybe you can get ready with your audio and then you just come back, sir. Maybe we can go for next question. No, sir. Actually, your audio was not good. Actually, you have some background noise over there, and
Okay.
Wind was blowing. Maybe you can just type in the chat box so that we can ask the same question to Madam. It will be helpful for you also. So let's. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So without further delay, we just go for Ms. Susan Jaisili Manuel.
Yeah.
Ms. Susan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm on the line. I'm on the line.
Please.
Sir, my question is, first of all, I want to thank Madam Lata Madam for giving a wonderful, its session is very informative. So my question is, ma'am has told about implementation of 4.0.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, do you think that a country like India will fully furnish this type of implementations, ma'am? Because many of the schemes we are really, literally, we are hanging. In that case, how can this implementation, whether it will be suited for a country like where most of the parts are rural, most of the parts are rural, whether this implementation will be successful, ma'am?
Yeah, yes, Susan. Thank you for the question. I think I can put it this way. The question can be little answered. Maybe there are better answers also. I think the group is much a learned group, as I told. So what I see is, if we there is a
Ma'am, your voice not
Yeah.
audible.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible
Please.
now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
Yes,
there is
ma'am.
statistics that says the number of active smartphones available in India is more than the
Ma'am, your voice is missing, ma'am.
Just a minute. I think I have actually on the. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so there is a statistics that says the number of smartphones active in India is more than the population of the country. So that means if a technology like, say you take typical houses nowadays. So if a technology like television, radio was slower, television was faster, and internet became much more faster. So the first is reachability is there. So that means even the last student or the last person in the country has most access to mobile phones. The second problem that comes is the infrastructure. So that is what is challenging for us. So the infrastructure has to be built. There is no doubt about it. If we have to meet the world, the challenge that the world is going to take it, we cannot say, I don't have the infrastructure and I cannot be there. Otherwise, we'll be an underdeveloped country. So we are a developing country and we are going to call ourselves as a developed country because, you know, during the COVID, we were the first one to find out the best medicine that was available. So India is manufacturing more number of PPEs and masks which are exported to many countries. So, and we also got a recent seat in WHO. So that means they show the progress in the country. That means that I'm very sure in the years to come, definitely the connectivity and the infrastructure will improve. Like Google Puchai, and Google has given us a lot of Wi-Fi and so on resources at railway stations and bus stands and so on. So with more and more of digitization, this is going to happen. There is no doubt about it, because once what we thought as fiction have become reality. We never thought that we'll have a mobile phone or a laptop or a gadget and we can sit and relax and
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Yeah, I think there is a technical error. She will be joining back shortly. So in the meantime, before she joins, so in the meantime, we just go for logistics announcements and logistics stuffs. So thank you all the people for attending the session today so passionately. And regarding the feedback form and regarding the assessments, So request Ms. Satya or Dr. Auxilia to instruct the participants, so it will be helpful for them. So since we receive many questions, until Madam rejoins, anyone can try with phone to Madam to rejoin from the college side, and any of you from the college side, you just instruct the participants on the logistics part of the assessment forms and feedback forms. So it will be helpful for them. Dr. Auxilia. Dr. Auxilia. Satya, ma'am. Ms. Satya. Vaishnavi, I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Satya, yeah, ma'am. You just instruct them on the assessment forms and the feedback forms, so that the participants
yeah.
will get to know until the ma'am rejoins. Any one of your staffs can call madam if she would like to rejoin.
Yeah. At the end of after the session, we will be posting it in the WhatsApp group, sir,
Okay.
and they can attend it. 1 hour time will be given for the assessment form, and within 1 hour they have to submit it.
Okay, ma'am. Fine.
Both the links will be separately given. For feedback form, one link will be given, and assessment form, another link will be given.
Okay, ma'am. Fine. Okay. So, and you can post in the Zoom chat box also. Maybe some of them will get, if possible. And also, some of them have not joined in the WhatsApp group. And I request all the participants, those who have received the mails, because we have been receiving mails until the last minute, even at the 1 hour before also, we are just sending mails to those who were registered from yesterday. So you will have the WhatsApp link in that particular group, particular mail. So it'd be great if you go to that particular mail which you have received from dinesh.mba.mk@gmail.com, or some of the professors who also had sent the mails. So please go to that mail and you will click the link. So you will direct it to the WhatsApp groups. It will be easy for you. Ma'am, you can also post the feedback link also over here. So if
yes,
possible,
sir, I'm trying. Otherwise,
yeah.
I'll post it in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Still, many of them are not joined in the WhatsApp groups. So
by today we will enable them, sir. By today we will enable them.
Yeah.
So that today alone we'll give them the whole day time for them to send the feedback.
Yeah. So all the participants. So please note. That today it's the first day, so that many of you might face some logistics issues and other things. So tomorrow onwards, we'll open the session by 15 minutes before. So today only we made you to wait until the last minute. We'll open 15 minutes before. So 15 minutes prior, you can join the session. And if you have any audio issues, so just try to work on your mobiles or work on your systems if you have any audio issues. So we'll just try to post the WhatsApp groups, or else today maybe we can send it through the mail today. The feedback forms we'll try to send through mail also only today. So tomorrow onwards, we request everyone to be a part of WhatsApp groups, and also we will post in the Zoom platform also. And after the official session ends, we will make sure we open the Zoom for 10 minutes. So that everyone who has been part of the Zoom session can be able to fill the feedback forms. And we request, do not share the password or ID of the program to the non-registered participants. If though even if you share we're going to certify the participants. So based on the registration we received, and based on the attendance we received, so we're going to paste, we're going to give the certifications via that. So please make sure, do not share the feedback forms. The Zoom ID and passwords. So you have the link we have just posted in the Zoom box. You can just try the link. I'll be opening the Zoom platform until the next 15 minutes. If madam is not rejoining, so we'll open the platform for next 15 minutes. maybe you can just use the link over here, and tomorrow also every session we'll post the link over here, and then after the official session we'll make the Zoom works for 15 minutes, and then WhatsApp we will be sharing you. Hope it helps. And the afternoon session starts by 3 o'clock today, so you can just start joining from 2:45 onwards. Yeah. So is it fine, ma'am? Is there any other stuffs you want to share, ma'am? Satya or Dr. Auxilia? And it's clear, actually, it's going to be two forms.
Yeah.
It's going to be two forms. One is feedback form, and another one is an assessment kind of a form, which will be a small MCQ question. So two forms will be shared to your WhatsApp group, and possibly today by mail. And today there is no time restrictions because it's since the first day. And tomorrow onwards, we're going to plan for minimum. The link will be open for 1 hour. It hardly takes minimum 1 minute, minimum 1 to 2 minutes to complete the feedback forms. So please make use of that. And I'm just sharing you madam shared you the assignment link also. So you can, any of you not fill the assessment link, you just make sure you can fill the assessment link also. So you need to fill 2 forms every day.
Yes.
Every sessions.
Yes.
Yeah. So make sure you fill 2 forms. And no worries today, not worry about the timings. We'll be sharing in the WhatsApp groups. And also end of the evening by mail also. Today only. Tomorrow will be tomorrow onwards, every communication through WhatsApp. And it's going to be tomorrow onwards, it's going to be only admin only access. So we're going to give only admin only access for the participants. If you have any personal questions, if you have any